agricultural use type may be conditionally permitted in the AG40 zone with an approved administrative use permit, such as the subject application. The proposed project is an ag use and will have a less than significant impact to surrounding parcels with the recommended mitigation measures contained in the mitigation monitoring and reporting program and the recommended conditions of approval. Finally, property values are not a land use consideration and are not regulated by the development title or reviewed by the Community Development Department. This photo was taken on the northwest corner of the project site, looking southeast. Depicted is the unpermitted outdoor storage area, which will be addressed by the compliance agreement processed by code enforcement. This photo was taken on Pine Street, looking at the seasonal overflow parking area, which is also unpermitted and will also be addressed with the compliance agreement. The industry agricultural use type is an agricultural support use and compatible with adjacent agricultural activity, which includes another similar facility to the southwest. The project is not expected to have a detrimental impact on agricultural uses in the area. The infrastructure requirements of the general plan allow for the utilization of a well, on-site wastewater disposal system, and on-site storm drainage system. The underlying project proposes on-site water, on-site wastewater treatment, and on-site storm drainage. And the Department of Public Works and the Environmental Health Department have determined that the project area is suitable for on-site services. Therefore, the proposed project can meet general plan infrastructure requirements. Additionally, the findings contained in the staff report can be made because the proposed general plan map amendment is consistent with the goals and criteria outlined in the general plan, and an initial study prepared for the project found that any potentially significant impacts would be reduced to a less than significant level with the attached mitigation measures. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward the mitigated negative declaration to the Board of Supervisors, forward the mitigation monitoring and reporting program to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation to adopt, forward general plan map amendment PA 220090 to the Board of Supervisors, the recommendation to approve based on the ability to make the required basis for a general plan map amendment, and forward administrative use permit number PA 2100295 to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation to approve with the recommended conditions of approval and findings for administrative use permit contained in the staff report, and condition of approval 1I regarding prohibited access contained in the notes for this evening. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Answered a lot of my questions, so thank you both. Any questions for staff up here?
I had a question. So when you're talking about the seasonal 12 weeks, what time frame is that?
That is during the harvest season in the fall.
Okay, thank you.
So with code enforcement, how long had the work been going on before code enforcement was made aware of it?
Through the chair, I actually have Code Enforcement Officer Chief Tim Burns here, who can help us out with all the code enforcement information.
Code Enforcement Chief for the county. So in direct response to the question, sir, the complaint was activated on February 24th of this year.
So do we know how long they had put the pallets outside and had people parking in the parking area?
We don't know when the violations began. We became aware when it was reported. However, I will say that as a direct result of follow-up by the community development staff, the property owner, the business owner have relocated all the pallets and all the equipment that was contained in violation on the parcel.
Okay, so I guess it's a question I can ask the applicant to explain why they did that and move forward without being permitted to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you. Now.
Okay, seeing no more questions, we're going to hear from the applicant now, or those in support.
Commissioners, I'm Mike Smith Engineering, North Main Street in Lodi. We've been working with staff for about well over a year. They've done a great job, explaining everything to you. A couple of things that, really I'm going to be up here to answer your questions. One thing I know that in the staff report, it calls the wastewater area, it calls it a pond, and it is an alfalfa field. So what they have is sprinklers out there that, to sprinkle that. So it's not a body of water. Completely separate from their storm drain pond. So they have a storm drain pond, doesn't get any wastewater, and it's only for the rainwater that comes off the site. We are also, we're been working with the city of Lodi, and it looks like we have a good possibility of getting a public water. They have public water to their existing facility. It's not that far away. We're going to work with them, and hopefully that's going to be able to get them some, not so dependent upon the well. So, and I know that was some of the concerns. Also, we did we tried to meet with the neighbors. We invited them to a meeting that they could voice their concerns and ask questions. And so, we did try to meet with them and answer all their questions. And we felt, we're heavily regulated on pretty much everything we do. Everything from the farmers with their pesticides on their fruit to what goes in the pond and when it can be dispersed onto the alfalfa field. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Do you have any idea of what kind of job increase that having this facility will, you guys have any numbers on that? How many more jobs it will create, or even seasonal?
I don't, and I know, another facility, there'll be jobs that will be available. And the one thing that I can tell you is that I know that the way, especially the packing industry goes, they're actually trying to reduce labor. Want to mechanize their packing, but this is a whole new facility, so it'll be staffed. Again, there's only the maintenance guys are the only ones there during off season. The rest of when it's packing, then they bring in the packing.
So it's as far as traffic, and if you go by the parking lot, it's pretty much those 12 weeks when it's completely full to the brim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ever gone by a cherry facility during
For sure.
cherry?
Yeah.
Plenty of traffic.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have. Any questions? Yeah.
So can you explain to us why you folks went ahead and decided to do something without a permit?
And that's where, basically what they did, was spread the gravel. It was almost for a safety concern. They were so much stuff on site, place to expand to. When we first got going on the project, we would hope that, we could have been working on construction a lot sooner. But it was just out of the need to get things out of their way. So, and, they put the bins and stuff out in that area soon after we started in on this project. So it was just, we need more space, what can we do? And so that's what they did. As far as, they didn't build anything.
Right.
Much just spread gravel and.
But have you said you've done work with Lodi and also with the county in the past. So I would assume then you're aware that there's certain permits that are needed before you could do any work,
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So you advise your clients that they should not start anything until they had permits?
Yeah, I always, permits are required. At that point, as far as the parking area there, and I've never discussed that with them, and I've been there for a while, and I don't think they even realized that they were supposed to get a permit to do that. But I do, yeah,
You understand where I'm going?
Yeah, no, and I advise my clients that, yeah, you're supposed to get a permit for that, and at that point, yeah, you know.
And fortunately, we live in a society where you almost have to get a permit to walk across the street. But there are certain rules and regulations that we need to follow.
Yeah.
And I sort of need some assurance that this kind of thing's not going to happen again before I would be willing to support this.
Well, and that's where they're, you know, we're going to, you know, work with staff. You know, we've already talked about, you know, getting the parking lot justified. We're going to do that on a separate mechanism. You know, and basically where they're storing all this stuff now, fortunately it's out of the way because now we got a builder that's itching to get out there and start doing some work. And so now he's got everything out of the way and he's got a clear site that he can get on.
I appreciate your effort to answer that, but I still need some convincing, as they say.
Okay, seeing no more questions, thank you.
Okay. And we do have a couple of letters that, yeah, that proponents.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, we'd like to hear anyone else, any other proponents of the project?
Chair and fellow commissioners, I'm Diane Kinderman with the law firm of Abbott and Kinderman, and I was wondering, we don't want to take up your precious time. Could I just speak after everyone else speaks and rebut?
Fine with me.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, is that it for in support of the project? Looks like it in person. Anyone online?
There are no participants online.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dennis Cooper. I live in Lodi, and I'm a past employee of Rivermaid. I work for Rivermaid seasonally for their harvested cherries and pears for the last decade. And in my experience working for them, I can say Rivermaid has a well-managed business with a steep emphasis on safety. And I'm here tonight to express my support for the new project and hope that it'll be a good addition to Lodi. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding my work experience at Rivermaid and any interactions I've had with the company.
Is it just a good, safe place to work for the most part? You were there a long time.
Yeah, 12 years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're here speaking on behalf, so that's I don't think we've had that before, so that's cool. Thank you. I don't have any questions. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to those. Oh.
Sorry for the delay there. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Porter. I'm also a member of the community. I live on South Mills. I'm also a former employee of Rivermaid, and I wanted to come up and voice my support for the project. My experience with Rivermaid's, they're honest people, and they try and do things the right way, well by their employees, and also I feel like, especially in this time where there's so much kind of economic turmoil, it's important to encourage and I guess in some way even applaud businesses that are trying to expand. And I think that's
Great, thank you. I'm going to wait a few seconds this time. Okay, we got another one. There we go.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Arturo Garcia. I live at 6058 East Pine Street, directly across the street from the Rivermaid plant. I have lived there for the last 16 years. I got these letters in the mail regarding the new building. I want to say that Rivermaid have been good neighbors to me. I have never had an issue with them. Security guard watch my house when I'm not there. They have security guards 24 hours working there. Even when I'm on vacations, they watch my house, so that's good to me. If if I ever need help moving something, they also help me. I don't understand why people will complain about this project. We need this project, I mean, projects like this in Lodi area, they bring jobs to our community. This is something good for everybody, I think. These are good neighbors, and as the closest neighbor I am in support of this.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. All right, that looks like it. All right, we're going to move on to those against the project. Anyone that would like to speak out against the project?
I'm Robert McMahon, live on Tecklenburg Road. My concerns with the project is mainly the water treatment facility. I have experience in this area, and I don't approve of the method they're using to dispose of the water. In my opinion, there should be a treatment system where the stormwater and the wastewater is separate from each other. The processed water should be sent to holding tanks where it is monitored and treated. Once it is treated, it should have the sludge removed through a filter press. Then it can be transferred to another tank where it may be used for irrigation or wash down purposes. The other problem I had with the project, it seems they addressed with the no permit. I'm concerned with what will be stored along that area from Tecklenburg Road to their plant. The other issues I have, on the original water permit, there were samples taken from another location similar for the approval of their water permit. The other concerns I have is that the yearly permit was just released March, and they missed a few of the tests and didn't have the right equipment to perform the test for the current use permit. Those are the main reasons I'm opposed to this project. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
My name's Audie Andrews. I'm one of the scattered neighbors on Tecklenburg Road. I'm not opposed to progress, but it seems like California's becoming the Wild West, especially with the county not enforcing the rules and regulations that they have on the books. Right? We've seen them break permitting laws and do what they want already. They may be good neighbors to some and bad neighbors to others. That's everybody's individual opinion. In my opinion, I've lived in the area for 7 years. I've called during the peak season and asked them to hand out leaflets to their truck drivers so they're not using Curry Road as a truck route between the two sister companies, which is, I believe they have a sister company over on Kettleman Lane. Nobody's done nothing. Nobody calls me back. Nobody's invited the neighborhood over to show us what they do and how they do it. Right? They don't do that for everybody. Maybe they watch his house, but the neighbors that are concerned about the egress into the countryside, right, the green belt, if you will, is being squeezed on. And it's businesses like this that just go rogue and do things on their own without following the proper permitting and the proper planning, right? It goes against the grain. And I really don't think that stopping the project is probably not the right answer. But as Bob said, let's do more monitoring. Let's do more training. Let's have people at the facility that are, more jobs, right? Have it be regulated or enforce the regulations that are already there. We don't want more regulation in California. We know that it's already over-regulated. But the regulations that we have in place, they need to be enforced, right? I don't know how long you guys have been in San Joaquin County, but we had the dry cleaner business that in Lodi that just disintegrated the groundwater with the chemicals that they put into the earth. It's supposed to be a great filter, but it didn't. And then the same thing in Ripon, right? There's a big cancer spread in Ripon because of the infiltration of these chemicals into the groundwater supply. That's great that they're going to try and tie into the city of Lodi, but it's not annexed. The city of Lodi probably wants to annex to be able to tie in. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but if they're going to get water from the city, why not take the wastewater to the city? They've got a multi-million-dollar facility for treatment over there, right? They're going to treat it the way it's supposed to be done. The city and the county does the things that they're supposed to do. Whereas out in the country, I grew up and my dad poured his oil on the weeds, right? That doesn't go on anymore. Now I collect my oil and take it to Cragen or whoever can recycle it. So I think more oversight for this project would be a good thing for the board to recommend to the Board of Supervisors. That way we start off on the right foot, right? We're looking for guarantees. We're looking for somebody from the facility to say, I'm going to do the right thing. And we haven't heard that yet. All I've heard is non-permitted this and non-permitted that. And we actually had them stop work over on an expansion onto Tecklenburg Road, and they're dragging more gravel on an area that's not part of their project. But they've leased the land, and they plan to push out in the country. I don't know, that's probably not part of this regulation or permitting, but it's happened. And you know, code enforcement was out there to shut it down. They red tagged the site, and they haven't done the work since. But they just keep encroaching on the green belt, right? So we need to protect that, and it's your job to do your due diligence to protect that green belt for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Shearer, and I live on Tecklenburg Road. I echo my neighbors' concerns. Regarding the lack of permitting. It undermines my confidence that they're following the regulations that they need to, and that's especially critical with the water testing. On pages 6 and 8 of their report, they mention testing. How often is water quality being tested? Who's responsible for testing this? What standards is the water being tested to? If they're testing it themselves, I have significant concerns because they've already demonstrated a willingness to flout regulations by having unpermitted building. And the unpermitted parking lot that was depicted in the photo has been there for a really long time. So they have a consistent track record of not following the rules. And how can this board and our neighbors have any confidence that they will follow rules with respect to water quality, which is something that's of paramount importance? I want to talk about the parking as well. There were comments made that there was going to be less than significant traffic, but we also heard that there was parking spots for 192 vehicles. That's not compatible. Those two concepts are not compatible. As you saw the residential map that's depicted, there's about 7 or 8 homes in the area. So 192 parking spots is an exponential increase in the number of vehicles that will be trafficking and frequenting the area. During the 12-week seasonal schedule, they said there will be 75 additional employees that are there. They also estimated or anticipated that these employees would be carpooling. But what is that based on? Is that based on data? Is that based on evidence of past seasons? I haven't seen anything that supports that. To me, that looks like an estimation that will exempt them from undergoing traffic studies that would maybe put the kibosh on what's going on. And I have to think that based on their track record of continuing to flout the regulations. They also talk on page 8 about traffic with vehicle miles traveled, estimating 110 vehicle trips per day. What does a vehicle trip consist of? Is that one way? Is that round trip? These are questions that need to be answered. And again, my concern is that they are trying to cast themselves in the best possible light to avoid further scrutiny. The board should be concerned about that. I'm concerned about that. Going to the enforcement that they talked about with their failure to comply with regulations. What does that look like? What does the compliance agreement consist of? And when the Planning Commission was speaking, they kept saying without the benefit of a permit. And I think that's an overly generous and flowery way of sugarcoating what the truth is, which is intentionally flouting permitting requirements. That's unacceptable. We need to be clear about what they're doing. Talked about litter, and that's a concern. We live in the country. We all live on 2-acre parcels. And we pay a lot of property taxes to this county to have the benefit of living there. And there's routinely hairnets and trash in our yard. They say that they will ensure that litter will not migrate to other parcels. How? They're making a lot of proclamations without anything to back it up. And I find that to be very troubling. And I hope that the board is as troubled as we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Zeke Shear, also a Tecklenburg resident. Just a couple of things that haven't been touched on. I want to kind of specify that there is an additional parcel to the east of the proposed plant that goes between the proposed plant and Tecklenburg Road that has some grading done on it. And if you look down it, you see a driveway that will be, connecting it to the proposal. And then if you think about that new parcel, and then you talk about, okay, well then the water is going between the existing parcel and the proposal. Okay, parking is going between the existing parcel and the new parcel. Can we talk about all 3 of these parcels under one permit, amend the permit, and then we can talk about this again? I don't have a problem with agriculture. We chose to live in the country, like it. But I don't want to see regulations flouted. The other thing I wanted to touch on was job creation. When we were talking about water use, they said that a production line would be moved from the existing facility to the new facility, so no new water would be taken. That kind of means to me no new jobs will be created. So, and that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the crowd? Okay, anyone online?
We have no participants online.
Okay, we're going to move to the rebuttal of the applicant.
Once again, Chair and Commissioners, I'm Diane Kinderman with the law firm of Abbott and Kinderman. I just have a few comments tonight, but first thing I'd like to do is I do have a few letters of support here. Your staff was gracious enough to copy them for me. I just mentioned my few substantive remarks. I do want to thank staff who's been very helpful to me and to the applicant, and we really appreciate their efforts to answer questions for us promptly and professionally. So thank you to staff, and we appreciate that very much. So a couple of things I just want to mention. I want to talk about CEQA here. So you have a very solid CEQA document. You have a mitigated negative declaration that addresses all of the environmental issues that could be raised on this project that the neighbors have raised, the concerns that they've identified. And the CEQA document thoroughly addresses all of those. And what I found interesting about the document is under most of the impact categories, there really were no potential significant impacts. There were very few areas where there were potential impacts, and of course those were all mitigated to a level of significance. But even so, primarily there were no potential significant impacts identified in all of the various CEQA impact categories. So you've got a really solid project in terms of CEQA compliance. The other thing is that, and one of the opponents noted this, that the applicant is heavily regulated, and they have been in compliance with those regulations. They've got Air Quality Management District, and of course the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and their waste discharge requirements, which comprise about 35 pages of testing and monitoring obligations, timeframes, and conditions that they have to comply with. And they have to upload all of that information to a state system so that anybody can go on and see whether or not they're in compliance. And there also are a lot of environmental groups out there that like to go online and see if they're in compliance. And I know if they weren't, the environmental groups would be all over them. So they're working very hard to continue to be compliant with all their state and local obligations. And so one of the reasons I was hired, everyone's saying, well, what guarantee do we have that they care about this? And they're just, they're flouting their obligations. And in reality, it was a mistake. And I can't tell you how many times I've called with clients who just said, I thought I could park my trucks there. I thought I could just do this. I didn't realize that. And that is what happened here. They were using it as a storage area. And obviously they weren't supposed to be doing that. And so one of the reasons I've just got pulled in here is to help make sure as this process, assuming they do get support from the rest of the county, to be able to proceed with this project. I'm just here to oversee what I think they've already done a pretty good job at, except for this, these minor mistakes, but I'm here to help them, and I think they've got a really good foundation, and they know what they're doing, and we'll just continue, or it's always a learning experience, life is, and they're continuing to learn what they should or shouldn't be doing out here, and I'm going to try to help them with that as well. I just wanted to mention a couple of the comments in opposition here. So with regard to the trucks that are using a route that the neighbor is having an issue with, so they do notify the truck drivers to please don't go that way. But what happens is some of the drivers, maybe it's a different driver, they use GPS and it takes them that way. So we don't know who to call to change that, but the GPS route is directing them in that area. So we're not quite sure if someone maybe at the counties had this issue. They may have some suggestions. We're open to that, but we can't change what the GPS is directing them to, how it's directing them to drive. And then the guarantees of compliance, we just wanted to talk about that. So once again, you've got CEQA mitigation measures that the county will continue to monitor those. Your staff does a good job in not only preparing CEQA documents, they also make sure that they're complied with. So you've got robust mitigation measures that are required here. You've got conditions of approval, several pages of conditions of approval that will continue to be monitored by the proper agency. And then you have the state conditions as indicated on the waste discharge requirements, which are quite robust as well. They should be. And not only does the state monitor what they're doing, because everything is online and made public, they are required to monitor and submit all of their monitoring reports at specific intervals. And so far, they haven't had any violations of that. And so that's a good thing. And so with that, I just want to conclude that, good planning is really, it's not about complaints, it's about facts with supporting evidence. And the complaints that have been identified, why they are of concern, they have been addressed with all of the supporting evidence in your CEQA document, and they have been addressed in other permits that have been issued on this, such as the WDRs and the air quality permit, and in the conditions of approval and what have you. So good planning is about facts that have substantial evidence to back them up, and that's what you've got in your CEQA document and in other state and local regulations that they have to comply with. And then the other thing is I'm here to try to help them as well, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. They have had a few mistakes, yes, but they've decided to spend the time and the effort and the cost to retain counsel. I am a land use environmental attorney. That's all I do. So they reached out to us, and that's what we're going to help them with. And are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Got one.
Yes, sir.
So the truckers who come in or in bringing in whatever it is, if they come in, you know what the route shouldn't be. Can't you tell them not to use GPS and actually follow the instructions that you would give each person coming in?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Charles Wilson. My family owns and manages River Maid. So I'd like to clarify a few things and answer your question directly, because that's a good point. Upon check-in at our security booth, we inform drivers that that isn't a truck route to the east of us. The only way they can access that is via Curry Road. Now, we do have occasionally pickups that haul ag-related trailers because there are cherry orchards on Tecklenburg and on other. So the definition of truck, I think, should be considered. It's not a 53-foot truck route. However, pickups can haul ag-related trailers down those roads. So upon check-in, we take a license plate, driver, company, pickup, purchase order number, and then we also inform them, just so you know, that is not a truck route. Oftentimes in this CHP enforced truck turnaround, there is a posted CHP that has written tickets before. And sometimes trucks do turn around in that at the very end of Pine Street. So I'd also like to answer one of your earlier questions that might have felt that were unanswered regarding the unpermitted activity. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm the cause of that. We're farmers, we're ag processors, we're not builders. So my ignorance and we bought the property adjacent to us and put some gravel down and ran a scraper, a little small tractor scraping around dirt, and thinking that constituted a grading permit was ignorance on our part. So I acknowledge that. But being like a repeat rogue offender, I feel like is a bit of a stretch. We put gravel on a field surrounded by ag area to put ag processing things like pallets, bins, boxes of pears. So just wanted to clarify that we did put a parking lot. I mean, surrounding cherry orchards and vineyards, that when they lay down gravel for their harvest season, maybe I shouldn't compare, but my point is, another one of our violations, storage containers. I didn't think you needed a permit to put a storage container on the ground. There are some weird loopholes that I learned, like if you put them up and put wheels on them, suddenly you don't need a building permit. But I'd just like to acknowledge that was ignorance in thinking we could put a storage container without a building permit. So those are kind of some of the nuanced offenses and violations that we did do, and we've since cleared completely off of the parcel, excluding the parking lot. We're still actively parking on the parking lot, but the whole new 15 acres is totally vacant, nothing on it. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, it's me again. One of the folks in opposition spoke about water treatment. Is the method that you're proposing to use typical for this type of processing?
Yes. I'll defer to Patrick, who's our CEO, who's better familiar with the matter of our water treatment. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. So my name is Patrick Archibald. I'm CEO of River Maid Trading Company. The answer to your question is that the WDR is a state-regulated document, and we meet, actually our water effluent better than the water quality objectives that have been proposed, that are enforced by the State Water Board. So all the different chemicals that we, electrical conductivity and such, is all well below standard.
Thank you. I got another question since you're up here. No, don't go away. The litter issue was brought up.
Yeah.
Now, it was said, and I believe it was from the other facility that was there, but you do have when you process, you'll still have hair nets and all of the other stuff, right? So what guarantee can you give to us and to the folks in opposition that you can do a better job than the place that's already processing that's next door?
That's a good question, and I appreciate it. I will tell you that this project on 6550 East Victor Road is along the state highway, okay? We're not contributing to that litter, okay? That's litter that's coming off of vehicles heading east and westbound on that. We regularly employ our security guards to make trips twice a week in order to pick up stuff that flies out of people's vehicles, okay? The parking lot that is adjacent to the vineyard, which bounds all these folks here, has a cyclone fence next to it, okay? So sometimes on a westerly wind, and workers who dump their face masks and hairnets and so forth, it does fly out. We do send our security guards along our perimeter to collect this kind of refuse. Now, if it comes out, I don't know what else I can do, because I'd be trespassing on their neighbor as well if we were going to go do that. But we do twice a week send our security guards around to pick up trash.
Wrap up if you don't have any other questions for me. With regard to their waste discharge requirements, I do a lot of these not only for private entities, but for public agencies on bigger issues like landfills. And this is a very typical treatment process. They have identified all of the constituents they have to test for, and it could change over time for some reason if the levels were high after testing. So it's kind of a living, breathing document that can evolve over time and improve if needed based on their results. But it's very typical, the one that they have, and appropriate for the type of use, is what would be my opinion. Any other questions?
Yes, please. If I may ask before you go back to your seat, is you said you were hired by them and you're a land use attorney, which is understood. It may not make sense, but when did they hire you? After people started complaining? Like, what was the purpose? Why was the need felt to hire a land use attorney? Because, like you said, minor mistakes. The second gentleman who spoke, it's not about putting. Let me finish. Thank you.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
It's not about putting the restrictions or having things said or written. It's about following them. So I understand, being a businesswoman myself, there are consequences for everything we do. So the burden is on you or your clients to make sure not only to be a good neighbor, a friendly neighbor, some may or may not get along, but the basic thing is, how is it that they can believe or trust the matter that has not been taken care of after getting the citations? If the county is using a soft word like the benefit of not using the permits, which is, in my sense, is total violation, because how can you just go once? Yes, you can say, I didn't know, because you are not a developer. I understand, because the developers have a better idea of getting permits. But you should understand from the other perspective what other people are feeling. If they've been seeing this over and over again, how do they feel if we go ahead and use our recommendation in whatever way we do use? Because sitting on the board, our job is to go with the land use, but also to listen to the community. There are people obviously complaining. It's not minor mistakes. It must be something that must be bothering them to come here on a Thursday evening. We just want to know that, since you are involved, how much responsibility do you take? How can you assure us that what has happened will not happen? It's not about having regulations. It's about following it and doing the right thing, not just saying, hey, you know what, there's a CEQA. The CEQA says this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. Those are the words that goes in the books. What happens in the reality is quite different from what really happens in the reports. So we just want to make sure before we give, and I don't want to speak on anybody else's behalf, but on my personal experiences in such matters is there are consequences for everything that you do, and this is a consequence. The reason you are standing here defending them for whatever reason is because there's a certain group of people who found it that things were not done the right way. So my only question is, how would you make sure, because we have to decide on something, I personally would like to see those people's concern being addressed.
Those are very good questions, and what you have to balance up there. I know as a planning commissioner, and obviously you care about your community, you all do, and when you hear concerns about that, you want to make sure, all right, great, we have a great CEQA document, they have all these permits, how do we know they're going to do the right thing going forward, and how could I help with that? So there's one thing that we do at my office when clients have specific types of permits and they have deadlines and things that they have to meet, we calendar them. We have a calendar meeting once a week. We don't charge the clients for that. We just do it as a group internally, all our litigation matters and all the non-litigation matters. And we look at certain conditions of approval that we think are really important for a client, and we put them on that list, and I have my staff follow up with them. So it's not costing them a lot of money, but we kind of chase them down. We're kind of parental in that regard, and we send reminders, and we try to follow up with them. So that's one thing that our office does in helping clients to comply with different matters. with regard to the county, the other vehicle that the county has, of course, is code enforcement, where not that you want to have your code enforcement inundated with complaints about an applicant as, you know, as they're operating, but that is a vehicle for them to call code enforcement and say, you know what, there's an issue going on here and this needs to stop, and then code enforcement comes in and then something changes. So that's another way that the county can ensure they're doing the right thing. So between us, code enforcement, and then of course there is, as I said, with regard to water quality and some of those types of environmental issues, California, Northern California has very robust watchdogs on both, or watch cats, whatever your pet might be, on both water quality and air quality, and they monitor what's going on and can do it very easily because everything is uploaded to a system and available to the public. So you also have those kind of ombudsmen out there monitoring. So those would be my 3 answers, and we do understand your concerns.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Charles Wilson again. I'd just like to also answer your question as the person that hired her. Why would we hire her, right? So this building is important to us as a company, as an employer, as the future growth of our company. This building being on site is imperative. You know, we've looked at other options trying to build elsewhere, but this Lodi's our headquarters, and that's kind of our desire is to build in San Joaquin County. And we did do violations. That's my point. We put gravel on the ground thinking we could. Well, when we found out that that was a violation, and we did it twice. We did it on the parking lot parcel and on the new parcel. When we found out that that was a violation, along with all these letters of opposition, well, something that's important to us, it would be wise to hire a land use attorney. So to help us navigate the rules so that we're obeying them, so that we don't make silly, ignorant mistakes like we already did again in the future. And what Diane's firm is doing is guiding us through the process to make sure that we are crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and being not only a good neighbor, but following the rules. And so, yeah, we hired her firm when we realized that sheesh, as ag people, maybe we should do a better job of understanding something. We don't build buildings often. We farm. And so we hire professionals to help us navigate, you know, county rules. And as farmers, I can tell you on other farms that we have containers on the ground that now, you know, now that we learned that lesson, we're going to not have containers on the ground. It's a process. I appreciate you guys understanding that we're human and appreciate the effort that everyone's made here to be here on a Thursday evening. You know, it's part of the public process, and so I'm appreciative. So thank you.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Anyone else before we bring it back to the commission? Questions? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to commission. Are you finished?
Thank you for your time. We
Absolutely. Yes. So I've done a lot of listening. I don't think the applicants have a project issue, to be honest. I think they have a communication issue with their neighbors. There is third-party water testing. I think that could be communicated. I think the truck issue that the man spoke about can be fixed, even in a season, and I know you get different trucking companies. We all know there's a dispatcher. I have a trucking company. You can call and enforce that a little bit more. And if there is a neighbor calling, it's always a good idea to call them back, even if you got to listen, get pissed off for a few minutes. Just ignoring them is usually not the answer. So it's a communication issue. Now, as far as can you pull up the code enforcement violations? So I'm in ag, so everyone knows where I'm coming from. Trucking and agriculture. And then if you could do the aerial as well, is that possible?
You want the violations first?
Yeah, let's do that. And that's the violation, correct? Okay, and that's where they're storing. So I see something probably different, so I'm just going to give, I'm up here for my perspective to give my perspective. Again, you have a season, you have ag. We don't know. I didn't know you couldn't put a storage container on the ground. And I trade storage containers, and I'm in farming. I don't know all these rules either. When I see this, I see the rush of a season, I see a timing, and I see someone trying not to get someone killed. All these create blind corners. They're stacked, they're organized. Did they get the permit? No, they were in a rush. It was a season, they did it wrong. They're in farming. I totally get that. I've made these mistakes myself. I've been on the other side of code enforcement as well. This is not, to me, this egregious code enforcement. I do, of course, we've had a history of questioning people when they just rush, especially with truck parking, when they rush to do something and say, oh, I just did it. This looks much more thoughtful. This, to me, is saying someone's trying to be safe and not get someone killed. Again, the project from the aerial view, it fits with what's there. Ag processing, this will make them, I imagine, be able to process, whether the jobs are not, process more fruit in a timely manner, which will all be from around here. It's a strength of our community. I don't think we're in a position to deny a project like this. It's just my opinion. I think there's some issues that you definitely could have done better. It sounds like to rectify them. It's okay to get complaints from neighbors. Everything they've said should be addressed. To me, a lot of it was as far as the water quality and tests. We have a facility as well. We get third party come out. They come out once a month. Everyone has access. Everyone is surrounding. So I do know that that is accurate. And I think with better communication, you could have solved a lot of your problems. There are people for it that say, hey, these guys aren't bad neighbors. But I just think the project fits with where it's at. And I understand where they're coming from. They aren't professional builders. It's hard to know everything you're supposed to do at all times. It doesn't seem egregious. It doesn't seem like a tale of them just wanting to break the law and not care. It's a popular company in the ag community. It's well known. I don't think they'd be so successful if they were just constantly running people over. That's my thoughts. Love to hear from a couple of the commissioners.
Okay, so, yeah, did I sort of go in and ask a lot about the violations? Yeah, I've been on both sides of it. So I know, and I was trying to elicit from somebody, a support of the project, to come and say, hey, look, we screwed up. People do screw up. We tried to fix it. We brought in a land use lawyer, which most of us don't even know we have to do until we get into something like this. I noticed on one of the slides you had 6 in opposition. You had stars, the residents, you heard from them. The one who, what I think I saw was the one who was closest to where this is going to go. I didn't see that there was a response. The one right by the parking lot, a little away from the parking lot area. Is that a star you missed, or did they not even respond?
There was no response received from across the street.
So we've got one of these. I personally think anytime that we can keep business and actually what we grow and what we can process and do, it's better for the county. And while I do have, I really did have some heartburn over this enforcement thing, as Mr. Commissioner Grunsky has said. We've seen this a lot since I've been on this commission, and I just want to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I believe I've heard that it won't. And the water treatment, I actually was in a business where we had to have a water treatment facility. And so I did want to hear if this was something that was typical, if it was, and you put that to rest for me as well. still a little concerned about the traffic. I think you need to work with the neighbors who are going to live on this area. It's, to me, Commissioner Hamilton used to say, would you want this in your backyard? You have to ask yourself that. We have to ask ourselves that every time when we sit here and decide on a project. And as James said, look, if this goes forward, you're going to be around these neighbors. You got to work with them. You got to listen to them. And they do have some concerns. And I would strongly encourage that you go to each one of those folks who were in opposition and explain and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, you guys are a big company getting bigger, and the reach out, I think you guys can improve on, just being completely frank with it, because I do hear their concerns. But again, I do see that violation. I see blind spots with forklifts trying to not be created. I see a lot of safety, although maybe not to the standards of permitting. A parking lot is a big deal, so you don't got cars roaming around parking, killing people when people. Season is very chaotic. There's late hours. I think they've made an effort, but I think with the oversight now and an actual permit, it will be much better. And I think honestly, this process will help them as well. So that's my thoughts.
I think it's a good project. I think it's really, really great that you guys came forward and that you have concerns and you're taking an interest in our community and keeping everyone on their toes. I think your concerns have all been answered. And I really do believe that they didn't realize they were that they were violating things by laying down the gravel or putting up a storage unit. And now they do know, and I am impressed that they hired an attorney to make sure that they do everything correctly in the future. So I do support this project.
Like I said, I'm pro-business. I'm big on business, and I have nothing against anybody hiring any attorneys. I just wanted to hear it directly through the source of what can be done. So hearing that satisfies my concern. Like I said, I'm big on business, but I'm bigger on community, but also understanding what our roles are here. I support what you guys are doing and owning up to what was done wrong and will be done right. That is something to be appreciated. Thank you. I just hope that, things are, whenever somebody comes, whether it's a small company, big company, it's always good to have communication. If somebody's calling as a courtesy, the least one can do is, no matter how busy you are, is return the call. Even if you don't agree, at least it shows the respect that, we might disagree, but we do respect each other's opinion. That being said, I'll go ahead and support the project. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
The Board of Supervisors, with a recommendation to adopt Attachment D, environmental document, forward the mitigation monitoring and reporting program to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation to adopt Attachment E, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, forward general plan map amendment number PA 220090 to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation to approve based on the ability to make the required basis for the general plan map amendment, Attachment F, findings, and forward the administrative use permit number PA-2100295 to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation to approve, with the recommended conditions of approval based on the ability to make the findings for administrative use permit, Attachment F, findings, and the recommended conditions of approval contained in the staff report, Attachment G, conditions of approval.
Second that.
Through the chair. Sorry. Can we also add the additional condition that we added in the notes for this evening?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
And so added.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Correct.
Still seconded.
Commissioner Rustaller?
Yes.
Commissioner Milas is absent. Commissioner Sangha?
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley?
Yes.
And Commissioner Gruncy?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Okay, we're going to move on to other business.
Sorry. We just took a text amendment 22212. That was an amendment to the AI section of the general plan, was approved by the Board of Supervisors on March 28th. And we're taking the text amendment for the development title cleanups that was at the last Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors on May 2nd. And then I can go through upcoming meetings, or it's up to you guys. Up to your pleasure for upcoming meetings. Okay. That's all I have.
Oh, I did have a question. Is anyone, I mean, what about July 4th? Or can we get whatever one is closest to that, not have that? I feel like I'm going to be gone. I feel like I want to be gone.
Yeah, me too.
Is that okay? I mean, basically, think about some scheduling because
Yes, I'll be gone for the first couple of weeks of July also. So.
Okay.
Okay. I can add that to our
me
schedule.
Too.
Yeah, we can.
I don't know where we're going, but we're going somewhere.
Yeah, we can definitely work project management and
Okay.
try and schedule around July 6th, I think is a Thursday.
Okay. And Planning Commissioner comments, I thought that was just a great meeting. I really enjoyed all your guys' comments. They were great. Great dialogue and good community involvement. So that's my only comment. Director's report, we just did that kind of, right?
Sorry, I butted in early.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Well, that's all I got. Anything else? Anyone? Okay. Adjourned.